Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Voices of Resilience. This is our weekly live cast we do on Thursdays. Times always shift, but every Thursday you'll find us here on Facebook or on our YouTube channel doing live casts. So my name is Nathan Hofer, and I work with the Lost&Found Association. If you don't know who Lost&Found is and you're just here because of our awesome guest, thank you. But if you've never heard of us before, we are a local nonprofit local to the South Dakota region. We're based out of Sioux Falls, and we focus on building resilience in young adults. We focus on that as a form of preventative mental health, so we can hopefully build enough of a community of support, advocate well for others, and connect to all these resources that we have around us, so that when hard times happen, and as we are all well aware, they do happen, that we have tools to lean back on, and we have we don't have to think about a world where we harm ourselves, others, where suicide is even an option. So as we look at that, that's what we're about. That's what we do. But one of the things that we get to do every week is this show, and I am so excited today to spend a little bit of time with my friend Addie Graham-Kramer of the event company. Addie, welcome to our virtual studio.
Hi, how are you? You're not even in a studio, so that's not fair. You are.
Well, I mean, I have, as I've mentioned probably weekly, living currently, we in the time of COVID and all our wisdom, we're like, this is a great time to sell our house and build a new one. So we're living with my in-laws, who are wonderful and kind.
Yeah.
But sometimes the quietest space is outside.
I know. I love it when your little girl's popping on too sometimes on the stream. It's fun.
They just went on a walk right now, and I guarantee you when they come back, that Letty will make an appearance and talk about her bike ride. So we may have a slight disconnect on my end at that point. But
okay. That's real life. That's what we do right now, right?
Welcome to 2020, right?
I know.
Well, Addie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about the event company before we get started?
Yeah, so I am Addie Graham-Kramer. I founded the event company back in 2013 after planning corporate events and nonprofit events and doing PR in a lot of different capacities all over the country, both in corporate and the nonprofit sector. I decided to just kind of take that leap of faith and launch the company. Actually, you and I talked about this before, but in my in-laws' house as well. So we were building a new house at that time, and it was a Sunday night in October of 2013, and decided to just press live on our Facebook page, and that's how we launched. So, I have a lot in common in regards to how we kind of do our business and what it looked like back then. But I've got two little boys. William is 11 and Calvin is 8. And I come from Nebraska, actually. So I'm a Cornhusker girl. You and I.
Yeah.
I know. But
my family is from Nebraska, and I just want to, quick aside. I've said this before. My grandma, 94 years old, sweet lady, except when Nebraska football's on, she mean.
I love it. That's feisty, though. I love it. So I went to the University of South Dakota, actually in criminal justice and poli-sci. I was going to go to law school, but while I was going to school, I loved planning events, planning parties. I was a part of some corporations that also did those same things, and here we are. So our office is located right in downtown Sioux Falls. We plan corporate, nonprofit, and social events all over the country. So we've got clients in 16 different states, and that's kind of what we do day in and day out. We build dreams is really what we say.
I love it. And I will say I got to work above you, not like physically above you, not like strategically or anything, just like our office was above your office.
Yeah.
Wow, I really should have thought through how I said that before I got into that.
I mean, we're only live, so it's okay.
Oh, it's fine. Everyone will hear and be embarrassed for me, so that's nice. But I got to work in the same building as you in Shivers, and it was awesome just to see your team and you just like going after it. And that's kind of where what prompted our desire to connect here. And before I dive into questions, I do want to say, anyone watching live, because I see that we've got viewers, if you have questions for Addie as we go along, throw them in the comments, please. We'll bring them up, we'll ask them, because once again, I say this every week, but you all have to hear me every week, and I don't want to hear my questions all the time. I want to hear your questions. It's better, I'm sure. So feel free to put it in the comments, please. So Addie, obviously, you shared this on Facebook the other day. And yes, Wendy, it is great to see you as well.
Wendy Dooley, she's such an awesome woman. Huge advocate for our community. My gosh.
Mm-hmm. I have to give her a hard time. We work together at USF, so whenever she pops in the stream, I have to like give her a hard time. Be like, who let her have a computer? Gosh, Wendy.
I talked to Wendy last week, so yeah, we've all got a lot in common.
I do too. I love me some Wendy Dooley, but that's another story for another time. But what I was going to say is, you posted on Facebook. Thank you for that. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
But you really kind of just talked about what we're going to be talking about here, and you had just a pretty crazy experience last year that I just remember very distinctly it happening, not knowing the details, but also knowing enough to see that you were like, how you handled it and handled it with such grace. And now that I know the story, I'm even more impressed. So I was wondering if you'd be willing to share some of that story with us here today.
Yeah, so back in August last year, we were at an event, actually setting up for an event, and I wasn't feeling well. And a couple of weeks leading up to that, I was not feeling well either, and I didn't think anything of it. Honestly, I just thought I just had a bug, just wasn't feeling the best. I ended up getting sick, and one of our teammates actually drove me to the hospital, and come to find out, my colon had burst during this whole time frame. So I think they had basically said, like, over the course of a couple of weeks of me not feeling well, it just kept kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden it burst. So I was very ill, as you can imagine. Everything was ruptured in my insides, and throughout that whole time frame, they basically had to, not to get so medical, because I am not a medical person. I commend nurses and doctors and anybody who deals with blood and all that stuff. That is not me. But they basically had to take part of my colon apart and attach it to a bag that I wore for a little over 3 months under my clothing, so nobody could see those things. But that's where everything was kind of at. So they attached me all together to basically make my insides heal. And I will tell you, nobody talks about these things that really happen in your lower intestines. Nobody wants to talk about those things at all. So nobody was very public about those things. And honestly, I kept it a little hush hush for a while, but I spent about a week in the hospital the first time, went home. When I went home, I kept getting more sick and just not feeling well. And I knew something was not right. And come to find out, I had ended up contracting a rare strain of E. coli. I shared before that, it was like 11:30 at night. I was admitted on a Monday again, the second time. And I remember laying there, and all of a sudden the door creaks open a little bit, and there's this man, very hairy, very bearded guy. And I thought, in this little peep of light, I'm like, this is it. This is the coming of Jesus. Like, this is it. These are the gates, right? And I'm thinking, I have no clue what's happening. And all of a sudden, it's an infectious disease doctor telling me that I had contracted a rare strain of E. coli. So I was in the hospital for another week, and they're trying to figure out, like, why, how and why this all happened, and try to figure out how to treat it, basically. So I ended up getting a port of medicine that I think I wore that for maybe a couple of weeks. I was talking to Callie on our team, and they were like, well, we're going to do surgery. We're not going to do surgery to kind of repair everything that was happening. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're going to take her in for surgery. I remember calling Callie and Sarah and my team, and I'm like, they're doing it. It's doing it. They're happening. And I was just crying. And, usually when you break something, right, you just go to get surgery immediately, right? You don't have time to think about it. Well, for me, I was in the hospital this entire time, had all this time to process, to think through things and what was happening. And then all of a sudden it just hit. So it was incredibly emotional. I was pretty quiet on social media for the first part. And honestly, some of our friends, our close friends knew, but a lot of clients who follow us on social media had no clue. Some were a little not kind of off-put in a sense of saying, like, why didn't you tell us? Like, we would have been there for you, which is so awesome. I mean, we try to give so much to the community, and I'm involved in a lot of different organizations. So for them wanting to kind of be there for me was incredible, but it was just one of those things that was very private. So I ended up having surgery, stayed in the hospital for a little bit longer, and learning how to adapt with this new apparatus that was on my body. So basically it's called an ileostomy. So everything was all attached. So I had no normal, I'll just say it, bowel movements. I know it is what it is, but it was all under me. So nobody would be able to see, like, walking around normal. Nobody would have any idea that I would have this apparatus, but it really became part of what my life was. And it really kind of transformed things that I would do, or just kind of focusing on taking care of yourself a little bit better, and just kind of the day-to-day processes of things. I mean, even sleeping was different. Moving around was different. No working out. I mean, there were so many things that were transformed and changed during that time frame. And honestly, like how I would be in meetings, I mean, I couldn't just rush from different spots because I had no control of things. I mean, it was this bag. We called her Carol. I don't know if my team named her Carol or if I named her Carol, because Carol the colon. So somebody named her. I don't really remember who, but I had a little bag. They called it Carol's Keeper that would have to travel everywhere I would go. So if we went to a concert, if we went out for dinner, wherever we went, this kit had to go with me. So it's basically my kit that I needed to utilize to kind of repair at any point in time. So I kind of felt official because I had like those little bandage scissors the whole time too. And but basically this was my whole life for those 3 months. And it was just a kind of a way to step back and say, like, how do we reevaluate our life right now? And what does this new stage of our life look like? Because as you know, I mean, working with small businesses, I mean, you just go, right? Like there's no stopping and you're working nonstop and you sometimes don't have time to take care of things that you should be, right? And that was my case. It was kind of that big wake up call of like, you need to slow down, lady,
Yeah. And I'm glad I muted myself because you shared this story with me, and a couple of those things make me chuckle because I still think about like, you think this is it, this is the end, and you're like, all right, it's coming. Oh, heavy coli. But that wasn't that in of itself. Like, first off, thank you for your vulnerability.
It's the bathroom. Nobody talks about the bathroom, right? I mean, you're kind of taught not to, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking, my wife and I might have been rewatching How I Met Your Mother. That's neither here nor there. But there's a part where she's like, "You didn't tell people that I had stomach stuff." Right? He's like, "No, because you just tell people you have the sniffles, because otherwise they picture you having stomach issues, and they're like, yeah, I didn't say that, and obviously he did, It's like, so I understand, like, there's that obviously somewhat of a stigma around that. People are just like uncomfortable. But so thank you for being vulnerable with that. But also, like, this sounds like what a disruptive thing that happened to you. I mean, to be able, because I will attest, as I mentioned, working in the same building as you, I rarely saw you slow down for that first month that I was there. I started in July, and I would go cross paths and all the time. And all of a sudden, then. And another thing I wanted to mention too is, like, I'll ask it in a sec here, but you wouldn't have known unless you knew that you had something going on. You really kept that very hidden, like, Carol the Gold. Carol was hidden, and we didn't know what no one would have known what was going on, but you still maintained such a sense of positivity. So I guess my question is, how did you remain so upbeat in that time? Because also I know there's some other things you mentioned, E. coli, but there was some other stuff that happened that made this already difficult situation even more difficult. And yet you still remain positive.
I think it's just like anything. I think you can always take one way or the other way, and I just chose to really kind of be positive. But also I read so much while I was sitting there in the hospital bed. I mean, that the first 9 days that I was in there, is called NPO. So I couldn't eat anything. I had ice chips, but I lost over 20 pounds when I was in there during that time frame. I was sick. Really, I mean, my insides were all floating around. So you have to think about, I was really sick. So they had to try to figure out the E. coli piece, but then also how to attach everything all together so I could heal. So it was kind of a period where, I did a lot of reading, but I also tried to connect with other people who went through the same thing that I was going through all over the world. And there's actually this Facebook group called Girls with Guts. And that's what I learned a little bit about. There's a woman in Sioux Falls who actually referred me to it. And I got engulfed in that page and just trying to learn from other women that have gone through it, because being a woman and having that issues is probably a little bit different than guys, because there's a lot of stuff going on in that area. So I just tried to connect with other women, but it was little things like, I don't know what to wear. Like, I couldn't wear denim till I think I first started wearing denim maybe in January. So I went from August until January. So I had to wear really cute joggers and pants that didn't have zippers, because you have to think about it. Where it's at on your body is literally where I have my intestines sticking out of my body. Truly, that's what it is. My intestines were in a bag. I mean, so to say, not to get all gross. We're probably going to get flagged on Facebook. I'm just going to hear it already, right?
That's why we're streaming on YouTube too. It's fine.
So I mean, there's all these little things like things to wear. I mean, it was just all those little nuances of trying to just figure out life. So I chose to just engulf myself in as much as I could about reading, about what to eat and how to eat. And I had a special dietitian, and there were all these things that I couldn't eat anymore. I mean, I would work out 3-5 times a week, sometimes more. Callie and I would be at the gym nonstop, and literally my life took a complete halt, like a complete stop. So it was hard, but I just chose to take that path and engulf myself with not only knowledge, but how I could also connect with other women that were going through the same thing across the country. And that's really the only way that I decided to go. I don't know, I just never chose to go the other way.
Awesome. And, you know, just 2 things here. Yes, Wendy, that is an aw shucks moment. We do love Wendy Dooley. It's great. But also Shauna just posted here that she's loving your honesty. And I appreciate that as well, because I said it's hard to be honest about hard things.
Yeah, it is.
As you mentioned, Callie, I know when we talked the other day, she shared some fun asides about some of the things that happened afterwards. Can you talk about? I know you know which one I'm talking about. Can you talk about one of those things that was an unfortunate side effect of what happened?
Well, there's a lot of side effects of
I was thinking about you said you had memory loss, so you couldn't remember things.
Yeah, so that was the scariest part, I think, of the whole thing, is because my surgery. So I went into surgery. I think it was the first time I went into surgery. It was supposed to be like maybe a 90-minute procedure, pretty quick, pretty simple. And it was several hours. I cannot honestly remember if it was 3 or 4 hours, but here's the thing. So you wheel your significant other into surgery, they say goodbye, whatever. And I'm sitting there waiting for my husband, Drew, to kiss me. And he's like, yep, see you later. Like almost like, yep, you're going to be out soon. Didn't kiss me at all. And then I remember him saying like, wow, next time I probably need to figure out if I need to give her a kiss. This could be like the last time. Right. But I was just, I don't know if I was under the anesthesia for so long that's what had caused it, but it puzzled the doctors as well and the physicians. So I had another surgery in December as well, 2 different surgeries in that last one. And even back in December, my memory loss was gone. So yes, Callie, God bless her, would say I would say one thing and then maybe a few minutes later, I would either forget or repeat the same things. And it wasn't like that with a lot of things, but there were certain things that I would miss. And even at home, I would miss things, and not necessarily doing things, but just remembering that I actually said them. So it was really, that part was a little scary, but yeah, you just kind of worked a little bit through it. Now I feel good. I have complete memory as much as I can, as much as I know, but yeah, that was a weird side effect of it. But
yeah, you as well, we'll talk about here. Yeah. You are one who's used to being kind of in charge and focus. You built this company, and we'll talk about that here.
Yeah.
But what was that like to feel like you weren't able to be in control of your body or your mind or any of that?
That part was scary, not only because first I was truly worried. I didn't know if I was going to get that memory piece back. And there were physicians that would say sometimes you may not. Usually they see that memory loss especially with that long of anesthesia with older people. But I obviously was not, I am 40 now, so maybe that's the tipping point. I don't know. But I think they were concerned as well. So just kind of watching those things. But the control of the company was hard, because the day that I ended up going into the hospital, we had an event that day, or we were setting up for a big event that next day. And then we had an event that weekend. So for me to kind of release control of those things was scary. But I will tell you, our team, the girls are so good at what they do. And they were so positive and just we got this, right? Don't worry about it. We got you. So they played a lot of defense with different things that were happening. I did, though, I will admit, there were times where I did wheel over that big hospital table over to the side there and would be tap it away, answering emails when I couldn't sleep or even just catching up on things. But for the most part, they really took care of everything. And from not knowing, I had this apparatus that was on my body that I had no clue how to even operate. I remember laying in one of the beds, and I was crying to one of the nurses, who Callie knows her. And I said, I don't know what to do. I was at a loss for for one time in my life, I had no control over anything, right? I did not know what to do. I remember being scared and tearful and just not knowing how I was going to live this way. And I had a little pity party for myself. I'm not going to lie to you, just because I'm like, why? Like, what did I do? And how am I going to do this? And what's this going to be like? And it was hard. It was really hard, but I figured it out. And I mean, it got easier, and I had in-home nurses that would come. They came pretty regularly. Then we started tapering off with in-home care. So it was a process. It's not like you broke your arm and you're back to work in a few days, right? Like, this was a huge life change. And I mean, a big wake-up call, but it was scary.
Absolutely. I mean, I think about that. Like, that's incredibly, I mean, to lose control. I don't like not having some semblance of control.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what that's like.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, as you were talking about this, these events, I remember very distinctly the first time I actually knew that you had had anything happen was that big, oh golly, that big all day event at
the convention.
The Hilton. Was it the Hilton?
Was it? Well, there was the one at the Hilton, and then there was one at the convention center as well. And I think it was either one of those two.
The Hilton, I remember, because the event company was running tech, and we had like the guy who was the futurist and stuff, and we were talking, and I remember like crossing your path, and you mentioned something, and then I think I might have seen Carol or something, or you showed her to me, and I was like, oh yeah, good. And I had no idea what was going on, and you were out there tearing it up, you and your team. Just like, that was a great event. I'm just gonna
that was probably about a month and a half after I was released the first time from the hospital, or the second time. So yeah, that was shortly after it, and I was still trying to figure out life. And actually, so Callie and I had an event in Chicago. So I think I was released out of the hospital that first week of September. We had an event in Chicago like the 18th, 19th, 20th, somewhere around there. So we were already on a plane and trying to figure out how to fly with this thing, and then Carol's keeper and all these supplies and scissors. I thought, like, my gosh, security is going to shut me down. But I mean, I learned through these other groups and these other women that I met, like, I just had a special TSA card that I had to show, just to make sure that I was able to kind of get through and not get the full pat down, which I still did. But you just try to figure out all those things. I mean, it's almost like you kind of get anxiety, right? Trying to figure out how to live with this new apparatus. They call it apparatus, which is not a sexy term by any means, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I think that probably, that's obviously we could discuss it all day. That's what that does, losing control to your sense of well-being.
Yeah.
We can probably continue to talk about it, but before I move on to the next little question, you are amazing, Addie Graham-Kramer.
Sydney. She's so awesome.
She's pretty great. Yeah.
She's a great advocate for us. We love everything we get to do with Sydney. Sydney is one that's always been there for us as well, and just kind of been a really big rah-rah cheerleader. And I remember getting messages from her when I was in the hospital. She's an awesome girl. You're awesome, girl.
So as you mentioned, getting a lot of messages from Sydney in the hospital, did you have like a good community that rallied around you during that time?
Yeah, honestly. So people are so generous, and I'm always one to, like, if I stop by or send something to houses or flowers or doing whatever for anybody that I know, I just try to be there, right? And we're one of those where we say we give to the community, and the community just kind of gives it right back to us, and sometimes tenfold. And it was the second time that I was in the hospital. I had so many flowers and gifts and books and all these things. I'm not bragging by any means. I'm just saying, like, it was overwhelming. And so overwhelming, I had this corner part of the hospital, which was giant. I love it. I felt like I was in like the penthouse, but I was there for so long that the nurses would come by and they would just stop in to smell the flowers. Like, you could smell them through the door. It was just phenomenal. And people would just constantly stop in, which was great. Now, granted, some of those visitors, because I was now a client of infectious disease, had to be gowned up and masked up and gloves and all those things. So that was a little bit different, but it wasn't like that the entire time. So it was so great. It was super humbling, but I mean, there were times where people would leave and I would just be almost overwhelmed with joy and tears. It was incredible to see. It's always one of those things where you host a party, right, for yourself, or a birthday party, and you're like, gosh, is anybody ever going to show up? Is anybody going to be there for you? Almost that sense of like, you give and you give and you give, but do they reciprocate it back? And they did. It was overwhelming.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the having to get gowned up and stuff too, that shows a whole nother level of commitment because, gosh, I just, I mean, those gowns are not
Oh
flattering.
my gosh. So my husband is almost 6'9". And so I will tell you those gowns are not made for 6'9" dudes by any means. He hulked out in that outfit, but it was what it was.
I have a great visual of that. One of my, I have a couple of best friends from college that they're 6'8", 6'8.5", and so when we were together, our average height was like 6'2", because someone brought down the average. It was this guy.
Because how tall are you? How tall are you?
It doesn't matter, Addie.
Someone should put
5'6".
it.
Okay, 5'6". 5'6". It's fine. Do the math.
So you would just come around your armpits, then almost right?
Pretty much. I mean, this is not valid for any other reason, but I remember like going to football games with my friend Paul, and my parents had season tickets. Like, oh, are you at the game? Yeah. Are you standing up? Yeah. Is Paul by you? Yes. How about he stands up? Oh, look, now I know where you are. I'm like, great, thanks, Mom.
Funny. That's funny.
So I have a good visual of a 6'9" person in a large in a
gown. Those gowns are like made for one size, I'm pretty sure, and it's not for those dudes by any means. But it gave me a good laugh though.
Well, finding humor in that is important.
Yeah. But it was those people, I think, that rallied really around me that entire time. And so I decided to just put a couple pictures up on Facebook with this apparatus, and just to kind of show people like this was real life, and not mainly just, not to draw attention to it, but to say like it's okay to talk about it, right? Like a lot of us are living with these things and people have no idea about it. But if you have to quickly leave a meeting, or if you are late to something or whatever, like give them some grace. Like there are other things that are happening behind closed doors that people don't know about. And that's, I think, goes to say for a lot of things, not just what I had endured. But so I posted this picture, and it was, again, overwhelming. I mean, the comments, the post, people were so supportive. But then I started having other women reach out to me, no men, but mostly women, that said, you know what, I have the same thing and I've had it for 6 years. Or guess what, I just had this happen and I have cancer now and I'm going to get this bag as well. Like, tell me, like, what do you do and how do you do it and where did you buy clothes? And so it was almost therapeutic in a sense that I was able to get help from these other women when I was going through in those beginning stages. And now for me to be able to kind of help these other women kind of go through it. 2 women in particular, I won't share their names, but they're also business owners. So for me to also share that journey about, did you talk to your clients? Did you share this with people? Did people know about it? That part was really kind of humbling to be able to help them along their path as well.
That's awesome. And I was just thinking, as you mentioned, sharing that and that vulnerability, that it's amazing what one voice can do to bring others to the table. Because I know, like you said, we all have stuff. And I thought your situation, like your physical thing that you kept hidden that people didn't know and didn't see, is such a good representation of a lot of the things that people carry. We don't know what baggage they have. We don't know what's going on, and you don't share it. You don't understand, and it's hard to be vulnerable. And that's one thing that I really appreciated about you during this situation, Addie, is that you did share that. You did share things that were hard. Mm-hmm. You shared some reality. I actually had the opportunity to talk with Lori Walsh earlier this week. We talked about what that's like with that pressure, and like no one shares their worst self on social media. Yeah. And you're very real, and that's such a hard thing to do in a space that's predicated by like you have to look your best all the time or show that your best self. And so I think that's so powerful what you did, and it's such a good visualization of true vulnerability about something hard, even those things that are hard that are unseen.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not, there are times where I'm like, do I get the right angle though of this picture so I do look good on social media? So don't get me off.
I'm saying that's still, you know what? If I'm posting something too, my wife is great about posting real life with our kids. If you want to get a laugh, check out her Instagram story. It's always a hoot. But even those moments, like she'll show something, I'll be like, don't do that. I sound like an idiot. Like, let me try it. Like, don't share that one. That's just for us.
I know. So yeah, it was, I mean, there are moments of that, but I wanted to be able to kind of share and to say like, it's okay to talk about it. It was, the cool part was though, is that there are these other women in this, just in our community, Brookings community, there's somebody up in Minnesota as well that reached out. Like there's people now that I know that have had this and have struggled with it. Now they have a permanent Carol. If they're like, they've got a permanent one for the rest of their lives. But for me to be able to connect with those women and to just be able to kind of share and to talk with them too was really incredible. And one of those women, actually, she is now feeling a lot better, but I have all these extra supplies after the surgery and after all these things. So now she's donating items to another woman and paying it forward, and we're doing the same. So it's those cool things that kind of come out of such a bad situation that I think if I could have looked at it a completely different way, things would have gone just so just a different path, you know?
Absolutely. And I think probably those connections you've made that you might not have made before, now we have some deep connections with these people. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, as we, not to completely shift gears, but we, you know, obviously you mentioned, you know, I see the event company logo in the background. Ta-da. Here, wait, hold on a second. Let me widescreen it. Ta-da.
Oh, there we go.
There it is. Zooming back in. You know, as I think about that, you know, I just, obviously you had to deal with a bunch of hardships dealing with being, as you mentioned, a small business owner. I had the opportunity to work with a lot of those folks in downtown Sioux Falls. We had a good crew there, but I see how hard you all work. So what was that like in this situation? What has that been like to, you know, even start that up in a space that's, you know, a kind of a tough industry to get into a little bit?
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously we can bring it back around to what it looks like for you today, because gosh, what for you, this has been literally a year of some wild experiences. Over a year now.
It's been a weird year. I mean, it's 2020. I don't even know. There's so many memes out there about 2020 can suck it. 2020 can do all these other things, but I'm ready for a new year. I think a lot of us are, but 2020 is also, I mean, even just in the last 365 days has brought not only challenges, but successes and triumphs and failure. I mean, I think a lot of us go through those things, and even starting our company up. I mean, I remember when I first launched, there was a woman in town who did similar things that I had was kind of getting into and launched the company. And it was after my dear friend Sarah Mogg from the Hilton, which you know, she kind of urged me to kind of push and just start this company. And I did. But I wanted to tell some of those other select people in our community, like, this is what I was going to do, or that I was launching. And I was kind of shut down, and I was like, wow, I thought all these females are supposed to rah of each other and help each other and grow and just to be their support system. And they were not. And I was almost like, gosh, am I doing the right thing? I thought this is going to be good. And, you know, when I launched, I did not have the support like we do now. And I think that was hard from not only a business standpoint, but another female business owner, to not have those connections in the community. But it took a while to build up, and there are really incredible female CEOs in this community and female entrepreneurs that I've been able to kind of help to kind of walk alongside, but also for me to learn from them as well over these years. But it was not like that in the beginning. And there were a lot of sleepless nights. And actually, there have been a lot of sleepless nights these past couple of weeks. I'm not going to lie to you. We are so incredibly busy, and I feel so blessed to be in that busy sector, but it's such a different world now, right? The days of these face-to-face events, which you are very well aware of, are not as prevalent as they have been in the past. So we're trying to shift gears and do things differently and try to be that resource for our community that we love so much, to say, like, this is how we can help you. And it's not about the dollars, it's about how we can help them continue to do what they do best, right? So we're this resource. Like Wendy Dooley and I met the other week just to say, like, how can we just be a resource to you? Like, we can give you ideas and input. Like, it's just, we want to help as much as we possibly can, because they need to continue to grow. So if we've got that skill set, how can we help to be a tool for those people? So that's been a shift. So yeah, not only like surgery, almost dying, hospitals, surgery, all these things. Carol's gone now. And then COVID. So Carol left my life the first week of December. So I had this short little bit, I know, goodbye, Carol, had this short little bit of time. And then we kind of moved back into the world, still healing, COVID. Now we're this. So it's been an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, I started here full time with Lost and Found in February. Had about almost to the day about 1 month, and then here we are. This is the new normal.
I know.
Um,
so
I do want to pick your brain on camera here, but first, you are the best.
Jeff. I'll see you later, buddy. We're doing an event tonight, so I'll see him a little bit later.
If he uses this as a platform to ask for coffee, I wouldn't blame him. It's a good spot to follow up with that. I was just thinking, you mentioned it. My background in higher ed was I did events for a very specific audience. Did like director of student activities essentially at
Right.
3 or 4 different universities, three. But did some stuff, did activities at a fourth. But I know what all goes into an event. An event. Really quick here. Jeff says, "No wonder you're ignoring my emails."
Callie, Jeff is emailing. Just kidding.
Good. This is a good community. I like that. That's the kind of community I like. But I was just thinking, we work with young adults. We work with a lot of post-secondary institutions and trying to do programming that has shifted completely. So I'd love to know how you are, as an event company, the indefinite article event company, how you're handling that shift and what you like. I mean, when it's all virtual, how that's a whole different level of difficulty.
Yeah, it is. It is a whole level of difficulty, a whole different platform. I mean, to be honest. So when COVID first kind of hit, whatever, all of us were working on our team separate parts. We had Natalie who was working at her family farm. We had Emily that was working also at a ranch. Callie and I were here and completely separate. Everybody was all in these different areas. But one thing that I think we did really well is we rallied every single day, twice a day. We did a 9 o'clock and a 3 o'clock kind of huddle. And we really, as a team, decided we're going to figure it out. And that's like, it wasn't just me and it wasn't just Callie or Natalie or anybody else. It was the entire team, and we figured it out. And I'm not saying like we've got it all figured out now, but it's such a different level of events now. Like, it's so much mental brain power of trying to execute these events. And yes, we work with incredible partners like Jeff and a few others. And it is incredible. But I will tell you, we kind of laughed about this the other day. We had an outdoor event and it was so relaxing to actually like lift tables and have decor and put signs out. Like, some of those things were almost, again, therapeutic. I remember Callie was sitting there and Callie goes, "Is anyone else having like a good time?" And we're all like, sweating and stuff like that. We're like, yeah, it actually is kind of nice. I'm not going to lie to you, because you're absolutely right. We're working in higher ed and you work with a lot of student groups too. It's trying to connect with these people, right? And trying to do it virtually is so vastly different. You have to try harder. Don't you feel like that? It's like, it's 10 times what you tried to do before, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's, when we talk about, you talked about your community of support that rallied around you in the hospital.
Yeah.
And Jeff, since I know you're watching, if you have any fun insights too, because I know you're all in that realm too, what that looks like, but it is harder because you can't to build. I mean, this is, for the most part, this has been the best we get, is like this. Right. And I think of how I'll say it. I think many of us are probably thinking, I'm kind of sick of Zoom because there's just a whole different level of, yes, you can see people, but that level of engagement and like, if we're in a meeting, right, you might take a second to like, look away from the person talking for a second. It doesn't mean you're not paying attention. No. So no, I would agree. It's that intentionality is hard. And I just think how has your team really has to have had to rally, to think quickly, and to find a different way to like handle what is a normal workload in a completely, I mean, not completely, but relatively unknown environment.
Yeah, I mean, we've been a part of different kind of landscapes of virtual events for many years, but the style of events now are so vastly different. And I talk about this a lot, how people are consuming information, they're consuming events, and they're consuming data and all these things so differently than they were even in February, right? It needs to be a broadcast piece. It almost needs to feel very produced in a sense of, just that the level of expertise. Like people just think they're tired of the Zooms, like what you're saying, right? So we need to figure out how to engage these people. So there is a story that came out just a few months back about how 63% of people are tuning out within 4 to 6 minutes of being online. So if we've got people that are still listening now 38 minutes in, kudos to you people. But that's really what happens is people are tuning out because they're doing other things. They're answering emails, kids are in the background, whatever else happens. So trying to find those levels of engagement is super important. But our team, I couldn't even tell you the number of platforms that we learned, that we went to training seminars, that we tried to figure out what would work best for our groups and our clients and the style of events that we do. We went to countless of events and trainings to try to figure out really what would make it work. I mean, we're talking about doing things on Saturdays when everybody else is watching cartoons in their PJs. We're actually listening to conferences, right? So just trying to figure out what we could do to make our company make that switch. So I couldn't be more proud of everybody and what we have truly done. It's really been a team effort.
That's awesome. And like I said, I know you have a great team there. You work with some great partners. And yes, Angela, virtual hugs are just not the same.
They are not. We're starting to do more hybrid events now, which is great. So hybrid is that where you take the in-person audience and you merge them with your virtual groups, which is so awesome because we've got some killer venue partners, not just local, but all over the country. And it's good to start seeing people kind of feel like they can get back, but it's not back to that full capacity like we would want it to be, but it's trying to figure out how to make it adaptive to those groups so we can still get back together. Because Angela, I agree, hugs are awesome. Fist bumps, elbow bumps, whatever it is now. I mean, we all miss those things, trust us. But now it's just happening with a mask on, right? So there's just there's ways to make it adaptive. And that's what I think we're all trying to figure out. And I don't have the answers, right? Like people ask us, like, when do you think it's going to come back? And when are we going to do events full at capacity? I do not know. I truly don't. And it is okay to not know because nobody knows right now.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, my 2 cents as someone who's not directly in the industry, I don't know that we're ever going to go back completely to a land without virtual.
Right.
And apparently Jeff echoes that as well. He said it's mentally exhausting.
Jeff.
Hybrids are even more exhausting, he says. Yeah, Jeff, just a quick shout out. I know that that PIN has been working. We worked with them for our 10-year campaign. So we like PIN, but I know you started doing 1 million cups, and that was well produced. Good job.
Yeah, they've been doing a killer job. Well, when you talk about hybrid events, it's 2 events in one, right? So you've got 2 whole separate audiences that you're trying to entertain, that you're trying to do different things for. You might be shipping or having meal gift cards sent to your virtual guest while you're also doing in-person meals. So, I mean, it's the whole level of complexity. But Jeff and I have been up till 2 a.m. trying to figure out stuff, platforms, what it looks like. I mean, yeah, it is mentally exhausting.
Yeah, and Angela says, and when can I start deleting some of these apps?
Never. The same thing. That's funny. Never. Angela's here to stay.
Oh, golly. We are kind of getting towards the end of our time. And as I mentioned, almost every week, I like to talk about where we see some things that are going well, because we talk about hard things and they're good. But I'd love to hear what out there is like that you're just excited about, that's giving you hope for what's next.
I mean, personally, I have tried to focus more on myself, even though the sleep is lacking in my life right now. But just back for me personally, getting back into more the fitness aspect of things and just kind of taking that step back and trying to kind of focus on some of those elements. For what's positive, I think what's to come in the future for our industry or for the business side of things, I truly feel like these hybrid events, while yes, they are mentally exhausting, Jeff, that is going to be the way that we start doing events and how we're encountering a lot of things in life. And it's not just events, right? We're talking about education. We're talking about seminars, talking about how we do our business meetings and how we're operating in offices. That is, I think, going to be the way of how we are going to operate, because we've given people this platform, right? So you break open the gates of Zoom and now people may be Zoomed out, but you've given them that tool, right? So it's going to be so hard to yank that back from them. So I do feel like that is one way that we are going to go. And it's okay, right? It's fine. If this person does not want to be in person, that is just fine. But we do giving people those options of how they can still be a part of it without excluding them. We cannot exclude people, right? We need to be inclusive with when you are planning a session or a webinar or whatever, a work meeting. We just need to think about that inclusivity. And I think that's the big thing of what we'll see to come in these next few months or years, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's something I've been feeling without being in that space. That's just something I've been feeling myself. It's like, as you mentioned, education. I had an opportunity to talk to our chapter presidents the other day, which was awesome. Haven't seen them or talked to them since
Yeah.
like August, and they were all. It was just how are classes like. One's like, I'm all virtual. Most of mine are in person.
Right.
Half of mine, it's like no one has the same experience. It's
No.
crazy. But there's some positives coming out of that too. So
Yeah. It's that inclusivity thing I think we just need to keep top of mind for everything that we do from now on, from restaurants to food to how we get our groceries. It's literally every facet of our life needs to have that inclusivity element.
yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Addie, I'm going to pull this up here. If you want to check out the event company, you want to give Addie a shout, check them out on Facebook, facebook.com/the event company SD. And I also want to say, as I'm still getting used to saying, thanks to our sponsors, because we have sponsors.
I see that. That's so awesome.
Yeah, so I just want to say thanks to the Astrup Family Foundation and American Bank and Trust for helping to make these programs possible and have these stories that are just so powerful. Because Addie, as we've talked about, and I say this often as well, but there's a lot of power in stories and hearing someone's journey, because then it helps you connect to them, but it might be similar to your own, and you are a living example of that with your willingness to share, be public with that prior to this. But this is great too. I love
Thank
this.
you.
So yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. And if you're watching this later, I understand if you didn't stick with us for 45 minutes right now, but hopefully you've checked it out again later. And next week we'll have a friend of mine. His name's Adam Grabowski. He is a comedian, but also mental health advocate, and he will be joining us for our Voices of Resilience next week. And we've got, before I take us out of here, just a couple last accolades. Wendy wants you to have a great day, and Terry Liggins thinks you're an inspiration, and Terry was just on last week.
I know, he's so awesome. We have him featured at an event next week. He is killer. My gosh.
We got good people.
We got good people. Well,
So,
thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was so fun.
awesome. It was a great time. So yeah, if anyone wants to connect with the event company, right there. And Addie, have an awesome day.
I will. You too, friend. See you later.